Hello and welcome to Stylish Chats with Creatives. Today on the podcast, I'm speaking to Jak Spedding. Jak is an interiors and architecture photographer based in the Northwest. Hello.
Hello, how's it going?
Yeah, good. You?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Good. I'll just fill the listeners in a little bit about where we know each other from. We've kind of been in each other's LinkedIn worlds for a couple of years, I think.
Yeah, I've seen your name around for a while, but we haven't ever spoke actually yet.
No, I feel like we've liked each other's posts, shared a little bit, and that's kind of about it, really.
Yeah, well, that's, to be honest, like most of my interaction with, there's hundreds of creators in Manchester, isn't there? And I guess 90% of them, it is just like a link and sharing for my contacts on LinkedIn is the way to do it. But yeah, there's very little people I meet face to face these days.
Yeah, I think that's a freelancer thing as well, isn't it? Especially if you're not working in studios as much. You kind of, it's hard to meet with people unless you have a specific like creative meetup.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I think this is one of the good things about your podcast, actually, is it gets you talking to different creatives. But yeah, it's kind of like a weird dating scene, isn't it? The creative world.
Yeah.
It's hard to meet people, or to meet the right people, should I say? It's hard to meet people.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes you, like you were saying about the right people as well, it's like you want to be put in with the right crews and like people you gel with, so you get all these ideas bounced back off each other as well. And like it can be quite hard if you're on a small team or, even if you're in a big team and you're like, somebody and you just wave at them and they're like 20 meters down the studio and you don't get time to just have a quick 5 minutes with them.
Yeah. Like, I don't do too much studio work anymore, but that's definitely one side of, because I've worked for myself now for 6.5 years. And I've not really ever, apart from my own studio, I've not stepped foot in another studio, and missing that sort of the team, the camaraderie, because I tend to work with really small teams. There'll be me and an assistant stylist. So yeah, you've probably got 3 of us on a big shoot for me. So yeah, that kind of bouncing ideas off each other, I don't really get anymore, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, I think sometimes too many ideas is super annoying on set, but actually
Yes.
Especially if you've got clients wanting particular things and everyone's trying to tick their boxes, aren't they? But when you're with lots of creatives who are like-minded and you're like, oh, what do you think of this? Or say like when I'm mood boarding and I'm like, oh, I could really do with like my mate just saying, no, that's fine, you can leave it there.
Yeah. That's, I think, the client thing. You knock the client on the head. With the right client, it's an amazing experience. But with the wrong client, when you've sort of got a business development or a salesperson who shouldn't be involved in any way in marketing, like, oh, I'll just pop in and see how you're getting on, that kind of thing. That can absolutely crush a shoot from my end, because everybody has their own sort of opinions, and especially if something as subjective as photography, you can have 20 different people look at it and you'll get 87 different answers. It's quite a hard thing to, like, you've booked me because you've seen my website, you've seen my portfolio, let me shoot it in this way. You get somebody saying, oh, I've done this on my iPhone. That's great. Put your iPhone back in your pocket and let me do my job. But it's just wording it nicely. But yeah, when you get the right people that you're working with, it's a great experience.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's often buyers who go, we really want to push this product. And you're like, great, but it needs to go through the system, because that just isn't just a shot. It's like, that's half an hour of everybody's work,
Yeah.
So I think,
Can you just do this?
Oh,
no, I can't.
That sentence. Can you just?
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, I am happy to do whatever the client asks of me. But if people think, can you just change the bedding? And I don't have an assistant to iron the bedding, it's not a quick 2-minute job.
I've become a lot worse at that recently. I know when I first set out for myself, I'd do literally everything and I'd get lost. I remember once hoovering a whole apartment, and it took me about an hour, and it's like, that's an hour that I lost shooting. And I remember saying to the client, like, is this the best use of my time? Like, you've just paid me £85 for that hour to hoover a carpet. And it's, from client side, it's not a good idea. From your side, it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a good example, I guess, of having the right people involved in the shoot. But yeah, when clients are just like, oh, can we just do this? And you think you're doing them a favor, and often you're not, because you're wasting money at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. And I think sometimes you have to kind of put things in a monetary way for people to understand, because not everybody
Yeah,
is in the same like creative mindset as us. And you've kind of just got to say, are you sure you want to spend 50 quid on me doing that? Because
yeah, yeah.
life's short.
It's as soon as you say it like that, the opinions often change quite quickly as well. Like if it is genuinely worth that to them, yeah, we do need that shot. But then as soon as it's like, well, it's going to take X, that's going to cost you this, all of a sudden you can see their eyes sort of start glazing over. It's like, actually, no, we'll skip that shot.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Definitely. So, walk me through how you got to having your own studio and running your own business. Like, where did your love of photography come from?
So my love of photography, I haven't got the sort of traditional path where everyone gets like the granddad's film camera and they fall in love with film and then developing their own stuff and doing it that way. I was very late to the party. After college, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I moved to China for a year, did some teaching out there, and I got my own. That was the first time I ever got a camera, and I was doing some sort of travel stuff, liked it, and to be honest, I wanted to join the RAF. I'd been watching some YouTube videos over there because I'm quite an impulsive person. When I came back, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to apply for the RAF." I went and applied, and the I forgot what they were called. They get like buzz cut guys. They were like, "Oh, it's going to take 6 months." And because of who I am, I can't wait 6 months. So I was like, right, what can I do? Oh, I like doing the photography.
Yeah.
And I think there was 2 days left on UCAS to apply for a photography thing.
Yeah.
So I went to Blackburn, which was UCLan, and I did my first year there. Because I'd had this sort of freedom of traveling for the last year, I didn't really get along with the education system anymore.
Mhm.
And I really struggled, to be honest, sitting in front of people and them telling me about the history of art. And I just wanted to be out there creating something. Because I've always been a creative person. Originally, my original plan when I was sort of 11, 12 years old was to become an architect.
Oh, cool.
I did all my work experience when you're in year 9 and year 11 at an architect's office. So I'd done like a couple of months, and that was my plan. I was like, I'm going ahead with that. But when I got to sixth form, I was told anyway at the time, which I've later found out was absolute hogwash. I was told I had to do physics, and I was sat listening to the physics teacher at the time. My one for GCSEs was really interesting, so I thought I can do this. It all makes sense. But the guy I got for AS level, he just wasn't. He wasn't my kind of teacher anyway. Probably now I'd have the skills, I guess, to sit and listen to it and be able to take it all in. But then certainly it was not going in. So yeah, the dreams of being an architect went out the window. And yeah, photography. So I did my first year, and then I got a job working for a studio in Leeds over the summer actually. That for me was like, right, I don't want to go back to uni. I don't want to sit in front of people telling me how to do this. Literally every day, I'm learning how to do it. Um, so for my second and third year, I was really lucky they let me do it online because it was only the second year they ran the course. We were like, right, we'll test it, do all your coursework and stuff, and as long as you get that in on time, you don't have to come to any lectures, which worked really well for me. So I worked 5 days a week at a studio over in Leeds, and for me that was the best decision I ever made because I think there's about 40 of us who started in the first year, and there's only two of us that are still carrying on 12 years after the course has ended. So definitely
Whoa.
for me, it was, yeah, it's a really bad statistics. I see it all the time because I do some teaching and the amount of people that drop off, even in the first couple of years. So assisting was definitely for me, that was the route to go. And that's the route I'd recommend to anybody is if you can assist someone, definitely do it. I know I was a student member of the AOP, the Association of Photographers, and every week I had their mailing list and I was just sending out emails like, can I assist you? Can I assist you? And it got to the point, that's how I got my job in Leeds. Guy was like, if you stop emailing me, you can come in and assist me. And just being tenacious is how I got that first one. Because I was emailing 200 people every single week, and literally I'd say two or three of them were getting back to me. So just keep at it. If there's anybody listening who is an assistant, just keep at it. Because yeah, it just does take that one break to make it click, um, and yeah, it went from there. So I worked there for 2 years, and then I left. When I left there, I did quite a lot of assisting abroad. So I did a bit in Portugal, a bit in Germany, and then my girlfriend at the time, so I was only 19, 20. She was like, "Oh, you need to come and spend some more time over here." And then, so I got a job at an advertising agency, and then we split up about 2 weeks later. So I regretted sort of leaving Portugal.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, definitely. And then, so I worked there for about 5 years. To be honest, an advertising agency didn't really work too well for me because you were shooting. My interest is always been architecture, and you were shooting. Sometimes you'd be shooting some beautiful kitchens and all that kind of stuff, really styled interiors, and then the next day you might be shooting, an old lady who'd rescued, a cat out of a tree. It didn't work, and luckily I was sort of, inverted commas, I was headhunted for a company who did a lot of interiors, and they were setting up a new studio. So I went and worked for them 6 months, and then I saw what we'd made them, um, into a monetary sense, and it's like, right, I can do this for myself. If I could make a quarter of that, I'd be a very, very happy person. And I set up for myself be 6.5 years ago, I think now. It's definitely the best decision going freelance and having my own company. It's been really, really good for me.
Oh, that sounds so good. So, how did you find working in China before you started coming back to uni and stuff? How was that?
That was it. It wasn't in any sort of photography capacity. It was teaching English as a second language. It's one of those sort of gap year things. My sixth form had like a twin school system, if you will, with a school over there. So I just went over there. But it was good for me because I've always been quite an introverted person, and literally going over there, and I remember the first day they walked me and put me in front of 40 kids who they were all 5 to 6 years old. It was year two. So it was like, go stand there, teach them English. There was no sort of background of this is what you need to do. And I think they expected a little too much, maybe,
Mm.
because we didn't have any qualifications. The two of us that had gone over there, and it was just like, go for it. So it was good in that sense of sort of a baptism by fire of getting in front of people and talking to people, which I'd never really done before. I was always that person of when it came to your turn, to talk in class, I'd not want to be involved. But it definitely got me out of my comfort zone, and it was a good thing. I'd recommend traveling to anybody, just as a way to get a lot more different ideas and stuff in your work. Even now, when I go to new countries, it genuinely inspires me. I'm always looking at the architecture and that kind of thing, but it doesn't matter what your interests are. Just seeing something outside of your own little world is a great way of improving your own work.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love looking at lots of different buildings because I feel like I was in Manchester the other day, last week for a shoot in
Yeah.
Spinningfields, and it felt very glass boxy. And
Yes.
I just love going and visiting countries, and they've got gargoyles on stuff, and they've got like these amazing buildings. And I'm always looking up because I have to force myself to like not be on my phone and just look up and not even take any pictures, just absorb it all in because there's so much to look at. And like you say, so much that can inspire you, not just from buildings, but culture and society in different places as well.
Yeah. I remember. I think it was I must have been my second year of uni. In the summer, did the interrailing thing.
Oh, cool.
I think it was. Did you get two? I think you got 2 months going around on a train. And I just took my camera with me and a couple of mates. Came back, and I remember showing my best friend's dad, the pictures, and he was like, "All these pictures are of buildings." Like I hadn't took any of us, and it like sort of that kind of paved the way of what I wanted to do. Like it was always in there. Like I always wanted to be an architect and stuff. But it was weird having somebody subjectively from a third party all of a sudden like look at it and it's like, oh, you took pictures of these buildings. Like they look really good, but it's just buildings.
Yeah.
Like there's none of you. I don't know what you've done. But that for me was the interesting bit about the 2 month trip. Was like this journey of the different architecture and that kind of thing that we had.
Yeah, it must have been so interesting. I know a friend did interrailing with his girlfriend as well, like
Yeah.
probably almost a decade ago now, but they loved it as well. But I think traveling's got a good it just opens your eyes to so much stuff.
Yeah. At the moment, it's quite quiet. I'm finding,
Mm,
so I'm sort of having a holiday every month because I think sitting around and trying, um, sort of thinking like the fact that I haven't got any work is it's really bad for me anyway for my mental health. I would just sit there like on LinkedIn looking for stuff like, oh, this person's got a job, why haven't I got a job?
yeah,
I still when I say that I'm still working 3 days a week, which is probably still good, but it's not as busy as I have been in the past.
yeah,
But getting away and sort of experiencing these new things and what that can bring back in terms of like, I have a really good thing when I get down. I'll take a load of stuff in. I'll consume a lot of content, and then once I'm out of it, I can be like, all right, how can I use everything that I've just consumed? And I find getting away and having a holiday, sort of refreshing yourself, is for me anyway. It's the best way of being the best I can be in terms of a photographer, because you'll know yourself some of the hours that we have to do. It is long hours. Like people don't understand. Like, oh, why are you tired? All you're doing is pressing a shutter, and like I'll have my Garmin on, and it's like I've walked like 8 miles in a day just shooting two apartments,
yeah,
and you're always mentally switched on. Like you have to be constantly like, oh, that like the vase is an inch to the right. Can we just move it to the left? And it seems like almost like nonsensical to people. Like, oh, there's much bigger things going on in the world. Obviously, there is, but you're definitely switched on all the time. And yeah, getting that little rest and recuperation when you can, because it's a cyclical thing. Like it will come back around. There's loads of work out there. But yeah, being prepared to be ready when it does pick up again, I think is going to be great because there's definitely a recession going on.
yeah,
It doesn't matter, yeah, how people are spinning it, like certainly for mine, which is a lot of commercial industrial kind of apartments and that kind of thing. There's definitely been a little bit of a downturn, certainly over the last year. COVID was absolutely amazing for me from a business point of view. I got so much work off the back of it because obviously everything was empty. Like how can they get people back into the offices and that kind of thing?
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but hybrid working is definitely here to stay. It doesn't matter how Savills and stuff are spinning it in their reports. I've definitely seen a bit of a downturn in that kind of respect, and I'm at the bottom of the funnel. So
yeah.
people further up the funnel must definitely be feeling the squeeze.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed the beginning of this year was way quieter. Like I'm normally quiet, kind of between November and March time. It's
Yeah,
like you say,
yeah,
like a couple of days a week, you're quite quiet, you're ticking over. And then it normally picks up the end of March or like when everybody's tax returns are done and stuff and they've got
yeah,
their new
yeah,
budgets. But this year it took until probably mid-June. So like
yeah,
you can definitely feel it. I mean, like there's some people who are kind of permalance in certain studios, and whatever works for them.
yes,
But I think if you're a bit of a floater, like I am, it makes me sound like a little floating poop. But
yeah, yeah,
if you're just like floating between different studios, and you're like got 2 days with this person, then 2 days on this job, and like you suddenly all of a sudden people go like, oh, I don't need that day, and or I don't need those 2 days, and you've lost a whole week's kind of like
yeah,
money. Um,
yeah.
but I agree with you. I think there's a recession. I think it's already here. But also, how else were they going to pay for furloughing everybody during COVID? Like
Yes, yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
an unfortunate side effect, really. But
Yeah, yeah, it will come back around. The biggest issue I've got at the moment is weather, which is like an odd one. I can't do anything about the weather. Like I can't do anything about recession. Like I've probably got 20 days of work backed up. That's exterior work, but I can't do it because it's raining in Manchester, and it
yeah,
rains eight. You'll know yourself, 8% of the time in Manchester. So yeah, there's always things that are outside of your control, and it's just how you handle it. Probably when I set up 6 years ago, it would have ruined me. I'd have been thinking, crap, I need to go and get a proper job.
mm,
But now it's just like, right, what can I do? Um, I do keep advertising. I do keep using social media. To be honest, social media, it's not how I get most of my work.
mm,
But a lot of the people from the networking kind of stuff, a lot of people aren't even networking at the moment, um, which it is a little bit of a worry, but it's going to come back around. I know the first studio I worked at in 2008, I saw how he handled it, and some days it'd be really bad, like we haven't got any work, but then other days people were working for like Adidas and stuff, they were still paying top whack, so people still need the advertising, they still need the good shots.
Yeah.
You just have to wait a little longer to find them. But once you can get through it, and if you're comfortable and financially stable enough to get through it, it's going to sort of separate the cream, if you will. And yeah, I think everyone will be fine, to be honest.
Yeah, and people are still buying stuff. So that's how I always think as
Yeah,
well. Like, there's stuff that still needs to be advertised because people are still purchasing. So it's like, as much as the morals of maybe like my job, because I'm in a bit more in a bit more of like a quick turnaround product that I'm shooting or styling, it's people are still buying stuff. People are going crazy on TikTok buying these like magic bodysuits and stuff. It's just different ways of styling and different ways of promoting stuff to people. And I think that's, like you
yeah,
say, that it will sift out like any shit ways of doing it. And I think as long as people stick with their prices and kind of club together a little bit, there won't be any of this undercutting. Maybe I'm living in a bit of a dream world there, but like, I think as soon as people start to worry and they go, oh, well, I'll knock 20 quid off, oh, I'll knock 20 quid off. And then before you know it, you're doing it for like 40p.
yeah. That's one of the things I learned actually working for that studio is he didn't ever reduce his prices, and the agency I went to afterwards, which was 2009, 2010, and they do things for free. But I'll either do things for free if it's for a charity or whatever, if I really believe in it, or you're paying the full price. Because if someone knocks you down and say you're getting 100 quid less for a day, I'm always sort of thinking in my head, I should be getting another 100 quid for this. And I don't think that's a good way to get good work out of people. If it's like, oh, what's your best price? Well, the best price is the price I've given you.
Yeah.
If I'm sat there thinking I should have an extra 20% on top of this, I'm going to cook. I'm not going to cut corners, but in my head it's like, why should I be doing this if I'm not getting paid as much? The value the client's getting out at the end of it is still exactly the same. You know what they're making on it most of the time. Like you say, clubbing together and everybody knowing. Like some of the people I go out for on a weekend are architecture photographers. A lot of the people I'll meet up with and talk to are the other interior architecture photographers in Manchester. Like clients think we don't speak to each other and they like to try and play you off against each other and that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's insane. I had one client who didn't want me meeting another photographer on site. I was shooting the interiors, he was shooting the exteriors, and they had this kind of thing where they were trying to keep us apart. And I'd gone out for a beer with the guy like last Friday. It's just insane. Everybody knows, and everybody knows the bad clients and who are the good clients. And if someone doesn't pay, everyone will usually say like, "Oh, this person's a crap payer. Don't work with them." Or if, for example, I'll get past a job that I can't do at the time or I don't want to do, I'll pass it to somebody else. Or if it's a job I don't want to do, I'll obviously warn them. But yeah, it's odd for clients to think they can get away with trying to undercut people, and undercutting is definitely not the right way to go, because it's a very hard way route back up the ladder. I think once you've been sort of expected to do things for cheap, the client's then never going to go, oh yeah, we're going to pay you an extra 50% because we're not in a recession anymore. They're just going to keep paying you the same. And
Yeah.
a lot of the clients I work for, certainly in the construction sector, they all talk to each other as well. So how I get a lot of my clients is referral. Like a lot of the sort of multi-million pound projects, they're all sitting around the same table at networking events. They all know each other, and if I do a good job for one of them, they'll pass me on to the next person, and that's how it works. But if I did a job for someone and it's like, oh yeah, I'll knock you 50% off, they're going to say, oh yeah, Jack, this is a really good deal, so geez, Jack. It's not a good way. Well, in my eyes, anyway, my business sense, it's not a good way to do business, because it's a very hard route back up, I think.
Yeah, it's quite detrimental, I think, then to others as well who have been in the business the same time as you. And
100%.
because then they
Yeah.
go, oh, well, Charlotte said that she would do that for £100. And the other person's like, well, actually, the proper price is 200. So it should
Yes.
be that. I do think that there's like, because in the film industry, there's very much like a bracket. So say a wardrobe stylist will get a bracket of, I don't know, I'm going to pull a figure out my arse, like between 250 and 350 a day. And
Yeah.
then a DOP would be getting, I don't know, £700 a day. And it's within that bracket. So, you go on a job, you know how much roughly the
Yeah.
lowest you're going to get. And it's not like that for photography. And I think that's a little bit weird. It's kind of something that I think needs challenging a little bit, because if somebody's really skilled at their job and they're really good at what they do, they should be paid properly for it.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think that's one of the biggest questions I have. I have quite an active blog, and a lot of people email me weirdly from around the world. And the biggest question, I guess, is what should I be charging for this? And like you go to university, but I'm saying they'll teach you how to take a good photo. I don't know. I've been to quite a few universities that don't, and they don't teach anything on the business side. Like that's why a lot of businesses fail. Like I'll be honest, cards on the table. I'm not the best photographer. Um, Out there's lots of people who can take a better photo than me, but the business side of it, they're absolutely terrible at, like self promotion and that kind of thing.
Mm.
So yeah, I think definitely getting your business head on and talking to other people. Because when I spoke to the other people who are doing exactly what I do in Manchester, we're all within 10% of each other. So then the client's just basing it off who do I want to work with.
Yeah.
Then it's that sort of being the nice, the easy person to work with. You're going to get roughly the same level of work off all of us. It's just a lot of it will come down to availability and stuff like that. Like there might be times where I'm booked up for a couple of months, but another person could fit something else. And I don't mind passing that to somebody else because I know karma is going to come back around and they're going to pass it back my way. But yeah, I think having that conversation wherever you are, if you create a group of where are we at in terms of charges, because there's going to be new people who come in and students are going to leave and they're going to want to do things for cheap. But definitely at the professional sort of the higher end of it, everyone is within 10% of each other, I would say, in the photography game.
Yeah, I've definitely heard, similar to what you guys do, I've definitely heard that there's a assistance group in Manchester as well who all text each other and just say like, hey, I've been offered this. Is anyone else been offered the same? And they all come out the same, because at the end of the day, you're just screwing over your colleagues who potentially at the end of,
definitely.
like, 5 years down the line, you might need to call on that person to help you out with something. So I do think it's like, it's also a difficult one, because I think people in this country really don't like talking about money and how much they earn. And I think to benefit everybody, that conversation needs to be a little bit more open, because, like it only benefits everybody, and it only then puts everybody at the same standard, who's at the same standard at the same price. And it's a hard conversation to have, though, because I had a conversation with a client and just said, look, I know that you're getting agency stylists in. I know that you're paying other stylists who are freelance like more than me, and it was a significant amount. It wasn't quite £100 more a day, but it was a significant amount. So I had this conversation and was like, look, I'm undercutting everybody, but my value is the same as these other people coming in, so I need to match them. So they were really good about it, and like we matched it, and then from then on in, they said, actually, we're going to bring everybody to the same level. So everybody then hit the same within, like you say, about 10%. Everybody was within that same bracket. So it kind of made sense then. But I have had a couple of like fresh out of uni stylists come and say to me like, yeah, so I'm going to charge like £450 a day. And I'm like,
yes,
hold on. You're still a little lamb. Just hold on a minute. Take a breath, please. I'm not saying that people aren't worth that, because they are, but you also, it's a very delicate line, because you can't ruffle feathers within clients and stuff, because they go, fucking hell, you're extortionate. Like, so it's a
lot of the time
one.
when a client's saying you're extortionate, it's just that kind of haggling, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, the example you're given there, like if you knew you were being underpaid in an office environment, you'd just feel shit. You'd be looking at the person next to you thinking, oh, they're getting paid more than me. Why am I doing the same amount of work? So it's weird that people try and get away with it when it's a freelancer, especially when you're working in a bigger studio and you are all talking like they know. But people do try and pull that kind of stunt all the time.
Yeah. I do think quite a lot of studios now just say, more often than not, when I'm reaching out to studios, they say our base rate is this. And then if you go on location, you add your traveling or whatever. So I actually think that makes it fairer and easier, because then if they have, say like they've got 10 stylists on the rota room, all the same skill set and we're all, or we've got different skill sets, but we're all the same level, we're all being
Yeah,
paid the same price. And I think that's the only way to eliminate it.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, the only issue I would have there is if you've got some of the bigger places that will definitely try and undercut you, like this is your base rate, but that's where talking to each other come in, I guess.
Yeah.
Like if you know a base rate's under what it should be, it's having the confidence, I guess, to call it out. And I know certainly myself in the past when a client's reached out and said, "Oh, this is how much we've got," and I've been having this sort of internal conversation of that's all they've got, but that's 60% of what I'd usually, like 5 years ago I'd probably been like, oh yeah, that's okay, but now it's no, this is my day rate. Like if you can't do that, then we'll have a conversation in a couple of years when you can afford. Obviously worded probably slightly nicer than that,
Yeah.
but yeah, at the moment in time, this is what my time costs. Is it worth us continuing on this conversation? Because I know I wasted so much time the first 2 years, like chasing people and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of the time, it was just me quoting things wrong.
Yeah.
Like now I've got my set day rate, which is 650 plus VAT, and all your travel. So you're probably looking 800 quid maybe all in for the day.
Mm.
And then like that's it. That's what you pay. Like there's no sort of messing around. There's no going backwards and forwards with the quotes.
Yeah.
And it for me that was a lot easier when I was quoting everything separately. Like, oh, they might need 13 shots, they might need 15 shots. Like it doesn't make a massive difference. It tends to level out.
Yeah.
Certainly, if I work for a client, a lot of my clients, I'll do a couple of shoots for them a month, maybe. And some of might end a bit sooner, but some I'll also shoot an extra 2 or 3 hours a day for them. So they might look at one and say, oh, you didn't do as much that day, but it does. The value is still the same over X period of time.
Yeah. And I was just going to say as well, and that's you doing retouch as well, isn't it? Editing going through your shots that you've taken throughout the day, editing them, sending them back. It's all of your it's not just you being there on the day, it's all of your paperwork and all the other bits that are involved in you going and doing that job.
Yeah, well, certainly for the bigger jobs, if it's anything over anything over 10, 15 shot, I'd definitely charge an extra retouch because then you're taking yourself out of another day of potential shoot. So the shoot is where you make the money, like you say. But yeah, I'd never charge for quoting. I think it's always like what you see on the back of electrician standards, isn't it? Like, oh, free quotes. Like, well, why is it not free? But saying that, I did have a client a couple of weeks ago that I had to say no to because it got to the point where it was the eighth quote. Started out a beautiful job for a construction company. It was going to do all these sites, and it just got whittled down to the point they were complaining over £12 worth of diesel, and it was just I spent mad for the value of the sites, and you're complaining £12. It was like, oh, we've had a look at this, and if you do it more economically, you could save 40 miles. But yeah, I can, but it's going to take me an extra like 45 minutes to drive around that way. So it's saving you money, but it's wasting me time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like respectfully, I don't think I can, give you the job that you want. If you're ivering over £12. But again, that's confidence thing and being in a financial position that I can say, no, I don't want that job. A few years ago, 5 years ago, I'd have probably bent over backwards to that client, and the stuff I would have given them at the end, it would have been of a very good standard. But they'd have probably still complained about it because that's the sort of client they were. And I think having the experience to know that from the outset is quite powerful.
Yeah, and that only comes with time, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it only comes
definitely.
with time. And I've had the same, now I'm in a similar-ish position to you where if I'm not available to do something, I won't do it. Or if something's becoming a bit too finicky, I'm like, right, this is not for me because it's going to stress me out. I'll pass you along to somebody else. I think I value, maybe it's age as well, I value my peace, and I don't want to get stressed out about, styling some Christmas toys.
But you're not going to produce good work, are you, when you're stressed? I know when you think you've got the client breathing down your neck and you're a little bit worried. I know I've had sleepless nights where you're thinking, why am I doing this? And you definitely don't produce your best work when you're under that kind of level of stress. But definitely, I think it is an age thing and a confidence thing. You have to be doing it for a few years. If you're a student and you just go in and you start sort of making these demands, I think people might laugh in your face a little bit. But definitely when you've got the experience to like the portfolio and people know you and that kind of thing, like they know you're not just messing about. Like we either put this money on the table and we do these amazing shoots, or you can go to somebody else and you're maybe not going to get the same level that you're after. But yeah, definitely, it's an experience thing, isn't it? And you do learn it, and every day is a school day, as they say, learning new things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like 5 year ago me would react differently to stuff now. I'd be way less chilled out and like,
Yeah,
don't get me wrong, like when I've not got much work on, I'm like, oh, did I like say something wrong the last time I was in the studio? And then like I text
yeah,
my mates and they're all like, no, none of us have got any work. And this will be like makeup artist, production, set build, everyone.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like, oh, thank God I didn't say anything rude or I didn't like, I don't know, fart at somebody or something. But I think
yeah,
it's like it just takes time and also like having that patience and the willingness to learn off us elders, I guess, who have been in the business a long time, you know,
yeah,
to take the advice and because we've made all those mistakes. And you know, it's nice to
yeah,
see people
definitely.
flourish.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. That's a good thing to pass on to other people as well. Is asking questions of the. I'm not sure I like you calling me an elder, but yeah, it's asking questions of the experience because I'm an open book. Like every year, well, probably around April time, I'll get people reaching out for assistance because you can tell they've got to the end of year three and they're like, "Shit, what do I do now?" You should be doing that stuff in year one and year two. But yeah, if anybody does want to talk to me about anything, and most people are the same. There's a couple of knobheads, but most people are the same. Like they'll give you 10 minutes at a time. I don't mind replying to emails and that kind of stuff. I think a lot of people think there's a lot of competition, and I'm definitely more of a collaboration over competition kind of person. Um, I'm going to get to the end of my life hopefully, and it be like, oh yeah, Jack was all right.
Yeah.
Um, that's kind of goal achieved, isn't it? Whereas if you're just a bit of a dick and you shut yourself off from everybody,
Yeah.
like the reason I'm so pro collaboration, I guess, is it was the first week actually I'd set up for myself. There was a construction company I did some work for. They took me to an event. It was like one of those sort of black tie events that I should not be at because I'm not that kind of person. But at the time, it was like, yeah, I need to do that. And they introduced me to the photography as an events photographer, which again probably shouldn't have been talked to. But he came over and they were like, "Oh, this is Jack." The guy put his hand out, and then Neil, the guy who was introducing me,
Yeah.
said, "Jack's a photographer." And this guy took his hand back, looked Neil in the eyes, and said, "You should not introduce me to another photographer." And instantly, for me, I could see how everybody reacted, and I was like, "That guy's a dick." And it was like for me, from that point on, was like, I'm going to speak to anybody who wants to talk to me about photography. Like, I didn't even want to talk to him about photography. Like, I was just going to go along with being introduced and stuff. But he didn't know what I wanted from him. But he was like, "You should not introduce me to another photographer." And it was just like, wow, okay, that's not how to do things.
No,
Um,
that's such an old school arsehole way of doing things because like I've had this conversation
yes,
about people not what's the word? People gatekeeping because
mm,
there's certain levels of things. Obviously, when you're in a studio environment, you don't want everybody to know all your tips and tricks. But let's face it, we all get to a shot one way. You know, there's
yeah,
20
yeah,
different ways to
yeah,
get to a shot. But some older people gatekeep a little bit and actually like that isn't beneficial to you because a younger person might have a different view on things and actually be able to progress you as well as you being able to progress them. So it's like a give and take.
yes,
And like
yeah,
that, I definitely found when I was down south, gatekeeping with regards to like styling was a little bit more. There was a bit more gatekeeping than what there is up north.
right,
Everyone's
okay,
way more
yeah,
like community based up here.
yeah,
I've only been burnt like once up here. And I think like that makes a difference because then you're like, right, okay, well, I can't do this job. So I know I can pass it to XYZ. One of them will be fine. They'll all have the similar standard to me and it's great. And then I'll like the same as you, I'll see like younger stylists come in and I'm like, oh, have you got yourself QuickBooks? Have you done this? Have you done this? Like, and just try and help them out because one day I might need them to help me out too.
Yes, yeah, I think yeah, looking at it from an unselfish point of view is definitely the best way to do it. I know some of the photographers I assisted, the first guy I assisted actually in Germany, trying to help him, like coming in with fresh ideas. He was a very old school photographer. Like I learned a lot of him in terms of lighting and stuff. Like he was used to shooting 12 frames a day. Like
Wow.
nowadays, yeah, like some days would do one shot, and it was just like, Jesus Christ, this is mad. Um, like just trying to teach him things like, for example, in the set build, like we need a hole drill in there. And he's like, right, we'll wait for the filler to go off. And you're like, what are you on about? Like, let's just clone it out, like do it
Yeah.
in the retouch. And he'd be like, no, we'll wait for the filler. But then once you showed him, like, we can fix that in 2 seconds. And all of a sudden you could do, 14 shots in a day. So yeah, it's not being scared of people that are coming in. There is, like you're saying, you get burnt. There's always going to be the one bad egg. I've been burnt. Well, somebody I used to put a lot on LinkedIn of like testimonies of clients and stuff, and another photographer contacted one of my clients saying like, we know you're working with Jak, but they made a slight error that it was actually my ex-partner that they contacted. Yeah, and they're like,
I'm
we know you're working with
squirming.
Jak, but yeah, but if you want us to give us a try. And she was like, yeah, that's great, but I do live with him. So yeah, it was that was probably quite an awkward thing. But yeah, to be honest, 95% of the people you're going to come across are amazing. You're going to get a bad apple in the profession, aren't you?
Oh yeah.
Like don't let one thing put you off.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's always going to be one, and there's always going to be one who's like holds their cards close to their chest and is very like um closed off. And are they people you really want to be around? Probably not.
No,
You know.
it will work for some people,
Yeah,
but yeah, then yeah, you're known as that kind of personality, which isn't what I want to get out of life, I guess.
yeah, exactly. So I noticed as well that you are a drone pilot.
Yes, qualified pilot. I need that on my Tinder bio.
Oh,
Yeah, anything under 20 kilograms. No. Yes, that was. I think I did that nearly straight away, actually, because a lot of the architects I was working for um, at the time, well, can you do aerial photography? And at the time, it was no. So I noticed there was definitely a gap in the market for it. It hasn't been as successful as I thought it was. There's been certainly a lot more regulations come in. Do you know when it all kicked off in Heathrow 3 or 4 years ago
yeah,
when they said drones were down and everything? It's definitely become a lot more regulated. And to be honest, it scares the shit out of me. Like you're flying something around in the sky that could drop on someone. To me, it's just a way of getting a camera where I want it to go.
yeah,
Like there's no, I know Mike, no photographer in Manchester. He loves the sense of flying, and to me it scares me. But it gets me a camera where I can't get it otherwise. And some clients they do really like it, and it's definitely it's another string to your bow, if you will. But it's not something that I'd ever sort of rely on as an income source. But I think it's good to see the different ways that clients want. Like a lot of people during lockdown wanted the Matterport, the 360 tours and that kind of thing. That really took off. But for me, I'm starting from fresh on that, and I could pass that, and I do pass that work to other people. And the sort of the investment and that kind of thing. You have to look at how thin you can sort of spread yourself
mm,
uh, to taking on new skills and how much away from photography, because that kind of stuff, it's you just press on a button and the camera's doing everything for you.
yeah,
Whereas a lot of the way I shoot, it's still very all my lenses are manual focus and that kind of thing, and I kind of like the tactile way of photography, if that makes sense. Like you genuinely feel like you're creating something, whereas the non sort of creative side of it, I might as well just be doing catalog shoots and that kind of thing, and it doesn't appeal to me, even though it's very much in the same niche, if you will. Yeah, it wouldn't float my boat at all.
yeah. I think a lot of people, like I was speaking to a guy called Rob, and he was saying that a lot of people think that photography is really glamorous, and actually a lot of us freelancers get our money from like quite boring shoots because that's
Yeah,
like bread and butter. So for me, it's like ecom stuff, and then there's nice creative jobs that pepper my year, which is quite nice because then you're
Yes.
like, oh, okay, cool. This is so nice to do, and this is nice to do. And I think it's really cool that you've got something that you really love to do, like all the time. That's really cool.
Yeah, I still do have. There's still a couple of clients that I'll do definitely 3 to 5 days a month for, where it's come over from my agency days, where we'll shoot product in a homeware environment,
Yeah.
and that kind of, it's very safe to, your mortgage is paid for, and
Yeah.
that allows you to go out and get those really nice big things. Like, I've not put it on LinkedIn ever. That was what I was doing, but it sort of affords you that safety net, and it gives you the power to sort of say fuck you to shit clients, and go for the nicer stuff, because the nicer stuff, nobody's going to look on your website and want to see stuff that looks naff or looks okay, but everybody wants to see, oh, he shot the latest development in Manchester and that kind of thing. Like, how do we book him to do our development?
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely having, you need to pay mortgage is the thing at the end of the day, don't you? And there's no shame in having clients that aren't necessarily the big names and that kind of thing. And clients, they'll respect that kind of thing. They'll know when they're not a massive client in the nicest way, but they're still getting a very, very good level of photography. And I've got some clients that I've had right from the beginning. So like I was saying, when I was shooting for the agency, we'd be shooting everything, we'd be shooting products and things like that. And I'll still do little bits for them because they were there when in the beginning, when I was saying like, yeah, I'll do £10 a shot. And they were there, they supported me. So I sort of feel like a little bit of you've been growing with me because of the photography, but I've also been growing with you because you've helped me pay my mortgage. So it's kind of repaying those kind of people. And the certain clients have gone on to become friends and that kind of thing. And it's definitely good when you can see a client grow in that kind of way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like working with like smaller brands, or
Yeah.
like I've got a couple of brands that I've been regularly working with throughout this year that are kind of starting from the ground up, and they've rebranded, and and that's really nice to be involved with from the very beginning and get your head pecked a little bit, and like you're like, oh yeah, I've seen how things can be organized better and how we can get shoots going quicker, and and I think that kind of advice to them is invaluable, but also it's nice to be lent on a little bit and trusted that you're, despite imposter syndrome knocking on the door, it's nice to be trusted with those kind of things. And it's nice to see people growing, and like you say, your work growing with them as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of my biggest things is like supporting people to come up through in their business journey, if that makes sense. Like the smaller clients, sort of, for me, my target audience is sort of 30 to 40-year-olds, females generally, because the males in construction, they just kind of want to get the cocks out and measure them and be like, oh, we're so good at our job. Most of the time they're not. Um, so I know if I've got somebody within that, I can get the best work. If it's generally sort of 0 to 10 is a good size workplace for me to work with, because then you're not getting too many people inputting ideas, and you're not getting not enough people inputting ideas, because there's nothing worse than supplying images to a client and them saying like, oh, well, did you get this? Well, no, you didn't ask for it. So yeah, knowing your target client, I think, is a really good thing, and who you want to work with, because then you know who you can help better as well. If you know you can help a certain business grow by providing this, I think that's a lot more powerful. I forgot what the saying is. It's like, it's better to have a sniper rifle than a machine gun.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you know exactly who you can help, and you can approach them and say, one of my most beneficial conversations was actually with an architect, asking them how much they make, because I think they said I was too expensive. So I went back to them and was like, how much are you going to make off this? And their thing was, usually they make 11% for them. It's usually between 10 and 15%. So, okay, you pay me 800 quid. If you then get your next job off the back of this, your next £1 million project, that 800 quid is then turned into £100,000. And if you can put that kind of thing down on paper of how can you help somebody, going back to that, when they see actual figures on paper, like a lot of people will say they're led by the heart, but as soon as they see £100,000 on paper, like the heart kind of goes like, oh, actually, no, we'll go for that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's a great thing to have, I think, and definitely knowing who you can help is a good, and working it out, because it'll take ages and it will change over time as well. Like I've done work for a lot of really big companies in the past, and that was the way I wanted to go for quite a long time. I know I worked with um, somebody like a third party on my business plan and that kind of thing, and we had, right, these are 5 clients that we want to go for. And I sort of slowly started ticking my way through them, and I got to one of them, and they were just absolutely horrific to work for. Really, well, one of the biggest in the UK fit out companies for offices, and it just totally put me off working with bigger companies. The amount of hoops I had to jump through, and the amount of people that were involved in things like emails, and it just slowed the whole process down. It became less about the photography of like, can we have a meeting about this? I just, I just want to make nice images that are going to sell, that you're then going to get your next thing off the back of. And then people are not having enough time to do things that were really important, like can we discuss um, after the shoot. I remember one of the shoots, they were like, oh, we're not happy with the colour on this image. So that's fine, we'll sit down, I'll go through it with Zoom, sit down with the interior designer, put it on. And after 30 seconds, she was like, right, I've got to go, I've got another meeting. Like, we haven't even looked at the things, and they were like, oh, well, we don't want to pay for that. Well, it's not my fault that you don't have the time to sit down. We've wasted so much time beforehand with these back and forth emails, and you don't have 2 minutes now. Um, so yeah, that definitely sort of changed my idea of, right, who can I help? Who's going to sort of get the most value out of what I can provide? And it is a little bit of an ego thing as well, because like you were saying, when someone pats you on the head and says, yeah, well done, it feels nice on the inside. Whereas when you get a big company and you send the shots through, they'll just be like, okay, your invoice is being processed. And like, the shots are good. Like, you're going to make loads of money off this. Say thank you.
Yeah.
You just don't get anything back. It's a horrible, because as creatives, we are. It's not bad to admit, but we are quite driven by ego, and we do like a feedback loop to
Hmm.
say like, yeah, you are doing a good job, or yeah, how can I improve? Um, it's a difficult balance, I think.
Yeah, I think a little thank you at the end of a shoot day goes a long way in my book.
Yes,
A
yeah,
really long way. If people are like, oh, cheers for your hard work today, thanks for that, then you've done a good job for them. You know that they're happy and they appreciate your time and your expertise, because I think there's
yeah,
nothing worse than feeling unappreciated, especially when you've got decades worth of experience and they're just like, all right, cheers for that. Like, oh,
yeah,
whatever, like, cool. See you next
yeah,
time. You're like,
yeah,
all right, okay. Was that good? Not good? I need
yeah.
reassurance.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it is a creative kind of thing that we do need a little bit of, not necessarily hand holding, but you definitely need to know you're on the right track. I know one of my biggest clients actually that I work for at the moment was I quoted for a job and they said no, and I asked for feedback, and weirdly they gave me the next job because I asked for feedback on why I hadn't got the job. They were just like, oh, we need to see more of this in your portfolio, this kind of thing. So then I was right, I can tailor it, turn my portfolio to that on the next job. But they were like, we've never had anybody ask for feedback, which seemed a really weird thing to me. So like, right, we're going to give you this because you're showing intuition or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, asking for feedback, even when something has gone really well, ask for feedback like, how can I improve on that? What would make it any easier? Not in the form of like give them a survey or whatever, that kind of thing, because your clients, they don't have that kind of time. But just drop them an email and say, look, can I help you? Like I always leave when I send my QuickBooks invoice through, like a little review thing at the bottom. Like if you have about 30 seconds, like I'd really appreciate it, and just make it as easy as possible for your clients to give you a little bit of feedback, because then you can take that on to the next client and how can you make it better for them. And it's always, for me anyway, it's about making it as easy as possible for the client, because they've all got 50 other things that are going on, and I'm just a little brick in a wall. And all to me, like, oh, I'm a really important brick. To them, it's still just a brick. And you need to make it as smooth as possible for them.
Yeah. And I think, how we outsource stuff to, like, we both use QuickBooks, or you've got an accountant, or, you go and take your car to the mechanic because you take it to the expert. To you, like you were saying, like, they're coming to you because you're an expert in the field that they need help with.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like you really it needs to go as seamlessly as possible. And then they go, yeah, this is great. This is ace. And then they're kind of like on to the next thing. Because also, as well, with it being a slight recession, I think that people are taking on lots of different roles in one. So people
yeah,
often don't have
100%. Yeah,
time to give you lots of feedback. They kind of just want you to just crack on, know that
yeah,
they're going to get something good out of you and that they can use it whenever. So I think,
yeah. Yeah, I
yeah,
think that's one of the best things is when you've got a client who I always like having a client on set, and I'm saying that through gritted teeth. But when the client trusts you enough that they just leave you to it, that's also one of the best feelings. That like we've got to a point now where they trust what you're giving them is what they're after. And that's a really good feeling when you get to that thing of like, oh yeah, we don't need to be on site today, or are you okay doing this one solo, that kind of thing.
yeah,
Because a lot of the time, like photography, you'll know yourself, they're really fucking boring. Like everybody always thinks they come from a marketing department, or especially students, like, oh yeah, we're going on a photography shoot today. And if it's a commercial interior space for me, I might move 250 chairs in a day to get all the wheels perfectly lined up.
yeah,
Like nobody wants to stand and watch me move 250 chairs. Like it will bore you shitless. So yeah, having that experience, I guess, is good for somebody who's just coming in, but also knowing that you're probably not going to get like what you want out of it.
yeah.
Um, is also pretty beneficial for their time. I don't want to waste anyone's time because it's not. It's like you know yourself, and people have got a lot of other things to do.
Yeah. And I think sometimes I like having clients on for the first couple of shots. And then I'm like, are we going down the right path here? And
Yeah,
they're like, yeah, cool. And I'm like, right, okay, let's crack on then. And I think like
yeah,
that's the best way in a way, because sometimes, like you say, some people come on set because they're like, it's a day out of the office. And then
yeah,
actually they're in your way. And you're
yes,
like,
yeah. Well, I think some people think because they've been given the day out of the office, which sounds a bit bad, doesn't it? Like given, like you don't do, but like that they need to have some kind of input. And
yes,
sometimes their input isn't necessarily the best. Like having the trust in the photographer and the stylist, etc., is sometimes the best way to go. Like if you've got something genuinely, but some people will just say something because they want to have a voice.
yeah,
And it's sometimes a struggle to back up off that. Like, yeah, I'll give that a try and maybe spend 2 minutes setting up a shot, but this is why it doesn't work, and explaining like this
yeah,
is why it won't work. Like I've had some really odd requests in the past to do stuff, and you're like, no, that's just not. It just doesn't work. Like psychologically, people like things like circles. They like red. People in a Western world read left to right. So like, why are we putting a massive red circle in the right hand side? Because no one's like everyone's going to look there and not see what else. So
yeah,
yeah, it's just having again, it goes back to the experience thing, doesn't it? Of knowing when to say no to a client, I guess. And it's a hard thing to say no to a client because at the end of the day, they're paying you,
yeah,
and you want to keep them on side. But the best way to keep them on side is just to produce like really shit hot work for them.
yeah, yeah, I agree. And give them boundaries, I think. Like, last week I had a client, I was setting up a shot. And bless her, I love her to pieces. But she came over to me and she was like, "This isn't very autumnal." And I was like, "I'm not finished yet, hun." Like,
Yeah, yeah,
back
yeah,
off. Come on.
yeah, yeah. My favourite's like if I haven't switched the flash on or something on my camera, and like you'll take a picture and the client will go, "Look, this is really dark." And you're like, yeah, well, of course it is because the flash hasn't gone off. And it's just like in your head, you're like, you would have worked that out, wouldn't you? Like, there's all this flash. I know it didn't go off. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's really dark. And it's like, well, yeah, obviously. But yeah, it's like you just want to say, well, of course it is, dickhead. But then you're going, oh, 1 second, I'll just switch my flash on.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I should probably switch my flash on sooner. But yeah, some things that may seem obvious to us often aren't quite as obvious to clients.
Yeah. And I think it's being a visual person as well. When you're a visual person and you can see stuff, and like you were saying about showing clients that sometimes you physically have to show them why it doesn't work, like
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
being in a certain way on set. And then they go, "Oh, yeah, it doesn't work." And you're like, yeah, because I have to show you. Because sometimes as
yeah,
well, I don't have the words as to why it doesn't work. I just know in my gut that it doesn't
yeah,
work.
yeah.
And then
Yeah,
you
that's
just have
fun.
to kind of go, right, let me just show you, because it's quicker than me trying to find the words to explain, because I'm just going to overcomplicate it. And it just doesn't work because it doesn't.
Yeah. I think definitely our brains work a different way. I know when I've got students and stuff with me, and they're like, "Why are you putting that light there?" I have no idea why I put that light there. Like, it works. It's a big softbox. Like, in my head, I can see how the light's going out of the softbox. But
Yeah.
if I then have to stand there, like, showing you the spread of the light and, like you say, explaining it and wasting 5 minutes, like, put the softbox there. I'll show you what it does, like in Capture One on the screen.
Yeah.
Like, that's why that light is there. And then see like, oh, it clicks in the head, like, oh yeah, that's why you've used that, or that's why you've done certain things a different way. But yeah, trying to get the words to describe why you've done that over showing people. I guess that's that visual learning kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, hugely. And I see photographers all the time with like work placement kids, and they're like, the
Yeah,
kids are like really interested in everything. They're like, tell me everything. And then the photographers are like working off their intuition, and the kids are like, why is he quiet? And you're like, oh, he just knows he just knows he's done enough
yeah,
of this before that's gonna work. And they're like,
yeah.
yeah, but
Do the
how?
thing.
And it's like, it's just experience.
Yeah, yeah. It's just practice, isn't it? It's just
Yeah, yeah.
that. I know one of my first clients. I had her on set once. And I took the picture, and she's like, "You haven't even looked through the camera. Like, how do you know what it's going to look like?" And in my head, I was like, "Shit! Like, I haven't done my job correctly." She wants me to look through the camera, so I was thinking, like, I need to look through the camera. But like, the shot was amazing. She was really happy with it. She was like surprised, like, how did you get to that level of you haven't even looked at it? You put all your lights up, you've done it, and you've taken the picture. But in my head, I was like, "Oh no, she's so unhappy." Like, so for the rest of the day, I was like leaning into my camera, like really over edging it, like taking my glasses off, looking closer. But yeah, it was, in a way, it's just like a backhanded compliment. But yeah, when you get to the point where it's just muscle memory, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just kind of rinse and repeat. Like, once you can like one thing, you can generally like quite a lot of other things in the same way. And different people will like things differently. Don't get me wrong, but like you're saying, you'll get to the same shot basically in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Hugely. So I've got one last question for you today.
Cool.
And it's a biggie, so come at it from whichever angle you want. But it is, what inspires you?
It is a biggie. I think it's going back to that growing other people's businesses. That's the main thing that I like, knowing that you've done something at the end of the day that's going to put like food on the plate of somebody, help their kids, do something extra at the weekend, that kind of thing. And that's why I like working with the smaller businesses, because it makes a hell of a lot more of an impact on their personal life than it does for a massive corporate. Um, yeah, I think the answer that most people probably use, like, oh, it's art in an art gallery and all that kind of stuff. But it's I'm not massively inspired by all that kind of thing. But yeah, definitely for me, from a business sense, and definitely on a personal level as well. Yeah, it's helping others grow and achieving what they want to achieve, I think would be my answer.
That's a really lovely answer. And on
Oh,
that
thank you.
lovely note, we'll end that conversation there. I've had a lush time chatting to you today.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Thank you for having me on. I've enjoyed it as well.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please rate, follow, and share, as it really helps this little podcast out. And if you have found value in the podcast and you have the means to, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. This will help keep the podcast going. Join me next week for another fantastic guest. Bye!